God was already saying, he's like, you already have my approval and I created you the way you are. Like these people don't get that. You're asking me to change something over and over. You see, at this point, I'm not going to change it because there's no reason to. And it's time for you to understand that.
That is such a loving message. And, I think people do get those messages throughout their life. It doesn't happen that often, but when it happens, you really take notice. And I know that, after reading about the strict rules for sex um, through the Mormon church, I can't even imagine how hard that was for you. Um, because I know that, being queer was almost like a death in so many ways, right? There were a lot of fears that came with that. And I think it's important to talk about because, you made it to the other side and transitioned, yeah, your lifestyle. But there are a lot of kids out there that are confused and scared and they don't make it to the other side. So I think, you explaining that whole process is so important. Um, gosh,
Thank
what,
you. It, as far as like sex too, I think, I mean, I grew up Mormon, so you just kind of grow up in sex not really being a thing. So it's almost like I think I've found that a lot of people who grew up Mormon, including in my own family, I guess just from being that way, you feel more like you're what they call demisexual. Like you don't really need sex to form a relationship and feel intimate with somebody. And really, it's the emotional connection that then leads more to the sexual side. But yeah, it's like I didn't need sex to be connecting with people, which a lot of religious people just assumed like, oh, you're coming out, you just want to have sex with men. I was like, that's not the need I have. The It's like I just want to connect with someone the way you do. Like I'm like, when you love someone or when you want to connect with someone is all you're thinking about sex? I mean, maybe some people, but like when you decide you want to marry someone and love them and spend your life with them, you're not just thinking, I can't wait to have sex with you all. It's like because most people don't like in Mormon, it's like, well, you only get married, you can only have sex when you get married. So it's like you just want to marry a man, being a man, to marry a man o- just because you want to have sex with them. like honestly, I'm like, I don't need to wait till marriage if I wanted to do that. But if I wanted to marry someone, it's because I want to spend my life with them. I want to share goals. I want to know what their dreams and goals are and help them reach them. And I want them to do the same for me. I want someone to go to the movies with and go on a walk and talk about life and share about how my day went, and if I wanted to start a family that I could start a family with them. And a lot of the misconceptions with like Mormon beliefs, as well as many other religions, is that you can't be a same sex couple and be happy, and you can't raise happy children. But it's like I've seen many people do that. Like I've met people whose parents are gay and they're normal. People think, oh, you're going to turn your kids gay, and look, they're not gay. They were just raised by happy parents, and a lot. So those are things I talk about in my book as well because you're taught so many things that affect how you view yourself. It's like, well, if these are all the bad things that people are saying about what it means to be a queer person, and I'm queer, then how can I ever be happy? I There's no hope for me to be happy. And then you realize, wait a second, they were wrong and they were misinformed. So you kind of have to go back, and I did go to therapy again, speaking of therapy, to realize, and it was also important for me to find the right therapist.
yeah, it's really
I,
important.
I went to a therapist for a while, and they helped me to an extent, but when it came to my queer identity, I think their religious views got in the way of helping me see myself the way I need. I was inside of me. I just needed to be revealed. They still had some misguided information about the queer experience, thinking like, oh, well, God doesn't. allow that, and God can change you. And it's like, uh, but I went on the site and just talked to someone anonymously because I was too scared to like talk to an act. But it was actually BetterHelp that I now like work with. But this was before I even partnered with them. I saw an ad and I was like, I can talk to someone without having to show my face. Amazing, because I'm too embarrassed to show my face right now. And it was like asking me what kind of therapist I wanted to have, and I saw LGBTQ, and I was like, oh, like I don't know if an LGBTQ therapist will understand my situation because I still considered myself religious. But I was like, you know what? I'll just talk to them and see if it's any better than the religious therapists I've been meeting with. And I talked about being queer and like dating the guy, and I didn't know if they were gonna like tell me like it's okay to be. They didn't even care. They're just like they treated it as if like any other normal relationship, and helped me just feel like, oh, like they're not treating me like, oh, you need to fix this. They're just like helping me walk through like a normal therapist would, and didn't think anything of it. Didn't treat me like I was bad or wrong. They just gave me normal therapist advice, and I was like, oh, this is so nice. Like they didn't get stuck on, well, you're queer or you might be gay, so we need to figure out why you feel that way.
Mm.
They just got to what I actually needed, which was just help working through my mental state and my emotional state that I was in. And so that was very helpful. And so it's sometimes you have to trial and error with your therapist even. Uh, so but and I usually go on and off. I'm not like seeing a therapist consistently every week for the last 3 years. I go on and off when I need to. But yeah, that's been my experience. I'm not sure what I was the original talking point that we were on to begin with, but
It doesn't matter. All that information is great. And I think it's important to point out that you reached out for help and that therapy, you can stay anonymous. You don't even have to say your real name. And I think artists, even at a local level or at a very high level, they're worried about their privacy.
yeah.
Um, but there's a lot that you can do anonymously, even in support groups. You could be anonymous. Um,
Really?
oh
In
yeah, you
support
could
group.
do. Yeah, you could do online support groups, and shut off your video and use a different name. Or if you go to an in-person support group, I mean that's different. They could see you, but
Yeah.
you could also have a different name. They only go by first names, and oftentimes if you go there, you don't even have to talk. You
Mm,
could just listen. You could just say, pass or whatever. I mean, because it's hard enough when you're in a tough place to go to a support group. That's like the last thing you want to do. It's just so scary. Um, but you'll find people very similar to yourself, maybe going through the same things, and there's a sense of camaraderie and also just understanding.
yeah.
You know, one thing that I
Beautiful.
was, huh?
That sounds beautiful, by the way. Like
It is
support
really
for
beautiful.
anonymous, still feeling camaraderie and understanding. Because I think that's what's magical about therapy and support groups is to feel understood is such a huge process of healing and making sense of yourself. But I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry there. What were
No,
you?
no, no. It's okay. Um, no, you know, the whole thing about being seen and heard is a big thing right now. But when you really think about it, it means everything. For someone to see you as an individual, listening to your personal story and reacting to that is really everything, because we're so different from each other. But at the same time, of course, we're going through a lot of similar things. One thing I was really happy about was when you separated from the church, your mom separated with you. And I know that would, like the fears of disappointing people and also separating from people like your family must have been a really big fear. Um, Before you came out, what was that experience like with your mom when you came out?
They my mom was one of the first people that I let know that I was gonna start dating guys, and, I realized that, because my mom was someone I always wanted to have approval from, like, a lot of my decisions since I was a little boy were made to please my mom and get her approval and her praise. And so I was terrified to make a decision that could go against what would get her approval of me. But I also realized it when I told my mom, she didn't approve of what I was doing. But that was also, I think, the liberating feeling because I realized it's not about getting my mom's approval. Whether she does or not, what matters is I'm making the best decision for me. And I know what I'm doing is right, even when I have the people that I love disagreeing with me. I It was an empowering moment for me because my mom at first said, "I love you, David. I love you, but I love God more, and I can't accept this about you. And God's plan for you is to marry a woman and to have children, and that's His only plan of happiness and of salvation." And I said, "Mom, I believed all of this up until a week ago, so I get it, but I don't need you to accept what I'm doing. I just need you to respect that I'm making the best decision for me right now." And she did respect me. She did not agree with what I was doing, but again, I realized that's not what it's about. It's not about seeking other people's approval. And if even if the people you love don't approve of what you're doing, then it's just as important. It's important to find people and surround yourself with people who do support you and understand you, because sometimes even the people you love don't understand, and it's not always their fault. My mom finally, like after a year of struggling and trying to make sense of it, did come to understand. But and she even decided to leave the church. She stepped away from the church and then she left entirely. And she said, "I've decided to step away from the church." And I was like, "Mom, why? You don't have to do that. Like, I know how much the church has meant to you and it means to you." And she said, "Well, I don't want to be somewhere where my children don't feel loved and welcomed. And if you're going to hell, then we're all going to hell with you." So I, I wrote a song about it. It's called "Hell Together," because I was really touched by what my mom said, and I knew neither of us really believed that if you come out as gay or queer, that you're going to hell for it. Like, I already received an answer from God that that wasn't the case, and it was more just in response to everyone else who was on the outside looking in, giving their opinions and saying what they thought. It's like, you know what? If they don't like the way you're made, then they're not any better. So if you're going to hell, then we're going to hell together. So
I thought this such a beautiful song and like such a beautiful tribute to your mom because I think, you know, your transition um to being queer, it's a journey. And I think we also have to realize it's a journey for the people who love us, right? Your mom had to go through a process and a journey to get to where she is today. And allowing people, even if they don't understand, to try to understand, you know? So I'm glad that your mom is able to be with you and have the understanding that she does in the sense that she just loves you as your mom and wants you to always feel welcome. Um, Now, before you came out, did you get advice from people? I mean, I would think that would such a scary thing to do, and how am I going to do it, and what am I going to say? I mean, did you get advice from others? How did you kind of build up that courage? Um, and then also know how to respond to her when she at first didn't accept what you were doing. 'Cause she had a really good response about the respect.
Thank you. I think I just spent a lot of time thinking about everything. It was a really big decision, and it wasn't necessarily spontaneous. It was a lot of thought. I tried really hard to find another way through, to keep going and just keep living straight. And I think I just finally had to accept what my path of life was. And I had to answer a lot of my own questions because it was very hard for me to accept myself. So I had already asked a lot of these questions internally. I had a lot of battles, a lot of arguments and conversations with myself. And I think it really concluded with that final prayer that I had. And so once I realized I was good with God and my perception of God, then that was the main thing for me. It was like I thought the worst thing that could happen was to be rejected by God, and when I wasn't, and saw that it wasn't how everyone kept telling me and teaching me, I was like, okay, I can take on whatever comes next. I can take on, no problem. So, uh, but it was a lot of that internal arguing and conversation back and forth with different parts of my brain about what was okay and what wasn't. So, yeah, it takes a lot of internal work, I think, but it's worth the wrestle.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of turmoil. I could see that. I mean, um, gosh, what was I gonna say? Oh, you know, this was not surprising to me when I read it. Um, but I wanted you to talk more about it because I think this happens quite a bit. I mean, as you're going through this turmoil, um, you can get depressed. Uh, you could also have suicidal thoughts. And I read that you did have suicidal thoughts at one point. Can you tell me what you were thinking? Like that whole situation where you were thinking about possibly ending your life. Thankfully you did it, and thankfully they were just thoughts. But what was going on at that point in your life?
Yeah, that's another thing I go into more depth with the book that I'm writing. Actually, it's um, yeah, it's sometimes like a lot to talk about. Sometimes it's like still works up a lot of the emotions from that time, but that's why it was like easier to like talk about like more just writing because I was able to take breaks and like step away from it and then come back to it. Um, but I, when you're taught that you're not, um, basically like I more so than in conversation and in culture in religion rather than in the actual writings, that they say that homosexuality and certain things are equivalent to murder, which it doesn't say anywhere in the Bible. But a lot of people like to use the Sodom and Gomorrah, like a story in the Bible where it's like the city was turned into a pillar of salt, and um, they're saying, well, he did that because of homosexuality going on, and which is quite interesting because there's no specific. It doesn't say that specifically. It says like there's these men that are saying like, bring this man out to us that we might know him, and um, I don't know. To be honest, like the Bible's confusing to me looking at it, like how it works, and for how people decide like this is what it said and this is how why we have our rules today. And it's like, well, that's a stretch. But so for me it's like the Bible says a lot of other things that you shouldn't do and people are still doing them. And it's very odd to me that people will pick and choose, like, well, the Bible says this. I'm like, well, the Bible also says this. Like, you're not supposed to eat pork, and you're not supposed to do this, and you're not supposed to do certain things on the Sabbath, and you're not supposed to um have like shrimp or like certain other foods. And it's like worthy of death, and for some reason you decide that homosexuality is the thing that God cares the most about of all the things he said to do and not do. Um, which then it's like, and they're like, well, God changes and things. I'm like, oh, well, if you think he changes, well, God told me that he was fine with me. But when people are so convinced that you're wrong and they're right, and you let that form their beliefs, and you believe them when they say that being gay is the equivalent of being a murderer, and is like not worthy of even living, you start believing that kind of talk yourself. And so you think, well, okay, maybe it's better for me to end my life, cut it short, than to live evil and be this bad, evil gay person. And, when you finally give yourself a chance to consider, like, well, what if they're wrong? Maybe they're wrong. And I'm going to trust my instincts, and I'm going to trust the answers I got in my life over what other people think. And that's when you can free yourself. Like, you've got to care less about what other people think, because a lot of times these people are wrong and are misguided and don't know any better, but they're still wrong. And you've got to do what's best for you. And it can be scary to do that because you care a lot what other people think, but not it's worth not caring what other people think to give yourself another chance and to keep going and be free. Be free from what other people think and live your life, and realize how much happier you can be because of it.
Hi, I'm Mari Fong, producer and host for Check Your Head Mental Health for Musicians podcast. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you like us, please follow us on social media at Check Your Head Podcast, and visit us at checkyourheadpodcast.com, where you'll find over 100 mental health resources that will assist you in your mental health recovery. You rock, and we love you.